Today is going to be a little bit different. It's really special. Happy Veterans Day to all my vet brothers and sisters out there. You may or may not know this if you have been watching Hot Topics Live or listening to the Female Veterans podcast, that I'm a proud U.S. Navy veteran. And today is a special day for me. And I wanted to come live and do a really incredible special interview with this guest of mine who is just a living legend. There's all I can say as far as the military goes and in the field of psychiatry. So this one is a really special crossover episode with the Female Veterans podcast and Hot Topics Live podcast, both of my podcasts today. And I know my guest today may look and sound a little different than my normal guest on the Female Veterans podcast, but it's Veterans Day. And he's incredible. And I have to share his story with you. He has an incredible book called The Ageless Call to Serve. He's a doctor. He has a PhD. And he is the oldest person to serve in the military. And I just have to find out more about that because my entire platform, especially on Instagram and with my modeling and all of that, is age is not a barrier. And we need to get out of that mindset that we are limited by our age. So whatever it is that you want to do out there and whatever you believe that you can't do because of your age, I challenge you today, after listening to this interview, to go do it. Okay? So let me tell you a little bit about my guest. And if you're watching the Female Veterans podcast or listening to it, hello, beautiful. And what I want to know is what's good in your life today. And if you're watching and you're used to watching Hot Topics Live podcasts, well, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Kia, and I'm a coach. I've been coaching for 5 years, and I love talking to people. And this podcast is about living your best life possible. And I aim to remind you that you are amazing. And here are some ways that you can live your best life possible. And one way, today's way, is by pushing through your mental beliefs of limitation. Okay, so let me tell you about Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Lanny Snodgrass. And oh my gosh, he's a pioneer in the field of psychiatry. He specializes in PTSD, which if you're military or prior military, you understand that. And you may not even begin to grasp what's happening to you, but he knows all about it. He's affected so much change in so many states in this field of psychiatry that you cannot even believe it. I can't even begin to tell you everything. Look, I'm just going to tell you some of the stuff that he's done. I mean, and this is before he's even gone into the military. Okay. He has proficiency in psychotherapy, psychiatry, and addiction psychiatry, right? Of course, he's board certified. And he practices in multiple states, including my state of Washington, studied in Oregon, which I live right by Oregon, right? So I know that connection is there. And then so many numerous military awards as well, such as the Army Achievement Medal, the Armed Forces Reserve Medal, the Army Service Ribbon, the National Defense Service Medal, and the Superior Service Award. He is a Department of Defense U.S. Army expert in PTSD and military psychiatry as well. And let me tell you something. There are age limits in the military, right? So they want you to go in when you're 18 or after you graduate from high school. And then there's a limit, right? The age limit. And you can't go in after a certain age. It's different for some of the other branches, I think. I think the Army may have changed theirs recently, but I remember that my mom aged out and she couldn't get into the military, which is why she really wanted me to go. And that's how I ended up in the military, right? I think she was 36, actually, if I remember correctly. Now, my guest was 63. So we're going to bring him on right now without further ado, and we're going to find out about his excellent military service, and whatever possessed him to go on to active duty, serve in Iraq at 63. That's so impressive. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So I want to jump right into it and just learn everything possible. And I would love to know what made you, before I even ask you about the military, I want to find out what made you study PTSD and psychiatry.
Well, I first got involved with the military before before I was a psychiatrist. I was finishing up my PhD program at the University of Oregon, and this was in 1970. I completed the coursework, but I needed to do the dissertation. Of course, I needed money, and there was this advertisement of a need for psychiatrists in Southeast Asia. Why Southeast Asia? Well, there's a war going on, and then the military made it possible for Bangkok to be a safe haven city, so military dependents could live there, be there with their moms. In most cases, it was moms. Well, the soldiers, their husbands were away. We used to call the moms. We used to call them 9-month-old widows because tour of duty was about that length of time. So I was there from 1970 to 75, and saw stress that was brought on by the war to the dependents, and I worked with other staff and in terms of helping the kids, helping their mental health. But as far as my involvement with veterans at that time, meaning Vietnam veterans, those that had served in the line of duty, I didn't really directly have that kind of connection. That my job description wasn't for that. It was really for dependents. But I became very, very curious about stress and the impact of stress on military people. And this that led me into the area of studying PTSD. Following my stint overseas, I came back to the States and went through medical school. During that time that I was a psychologist overseas, there's not as much resource. There's not many people with that expertise, and so you get involved in a whole different milieu of treaters, and you can do wonderful things, and you can integrate your treatment with medical staff, with psychiatrists, with the Army staff. And that was enriching for me. It really was. And I just felt coming back that, I think I want more autonomy. So I bit off what I thought was more than I could chew, but it worked out, and got my medical degree. And then my training began at University of Kansas, the internship year. And the training there was supposed to be eclectic. At least that's what they presented it as. But I found out it was really biological, almost totally biological. Some of the professors from Menninger's came over and taught psychotherapy, dynamic therapy, and I said, as a psychologist, hey, this is kind of where I ought to be. And so I applied for entrance into that program, and they accepted me, and then from there to UCLA and a rotation in advanced clinical pharmacology and assistant professor, and then the war breaks out in overseas with the Gulf War, the Desert Storm, and I said, I'm going to volunteer as a civilian, go overseas. So that's what I did. And that was a tremendous and enlightening experience. Because there, I was working with really active duty military and officers and high ranking officers as well, and encountered my real challenge with a 4-star general in the Department of Defense. That's in my book. I won't go into that. That was a real learning experience, a grow up experience. I guess at my age, I had the will and fortitude to stand by my ethics and the Hippocratic Oath, and I'm not sorry I did it. I'd do the same thing again. So
that's incredible.
So the training at Menninger's was really it was just magnificent. My mentor, Walter Menninger, the son of Bill Menninger, William Menninger. Well, who was William Menninger? William Menninger was a brigadier general, and he established psychiatry as an accepted practice in the military during World War II. And so Menninger's really has a lot of roots of the history of military psychiatry. And I cut my teeth on Vietnam vets, World War II vets, did a lot of group therapy and learned a lot from it too as well. And not to mention hypnotherapy. Well, because I think hypnosis really has a place. It has a place in this stress syndrome. It's just, through the bad press and public things that have happened, they have not given it much attention or priority. But I think that's a mistake.
It's interesting that you say that, because I understand that hypnotherapy is so effective for a multitude of things, and I'd never heard for PTSD. So this is incredible.
Well, let me give you an example. Dr. Watkins, rather famous psychologist, worked with World War II vets, and I went to his workshop. And this is after I first learned about hypnosis, actually in Singapore. I went after the Vietnam War. I went down to Singapore for 2 years and worked also as a psychologist. And during that time, there was someone by the name of Dr. Hartland. Dr. Hartland came to Singapore and offered a workshop on hypnosis, but really offered this to medical doctors who would use hypnosis as an anesthetic for surgery. So I allowed him to hypnotize me, not knowing that he was in England known as the father of hypnosis of England. So I got really excited in this. And so anyway, back to Dr. Watkins. Dr. Watkins, working with World War II vets, talks about his case of a young combat soldier, World War II, in Germany, and faced with a machine gun nest of Nazi soldiers that were shooting at their company. And he was probably 100 yards away, less than 100 yards away. Yeah, probably 50 yards away. Because the colonel, he ordered him to throw the hand grenade. He has the hand grenade in his hand. He has his index finger on the pin, and he freezes. He freezes. And there were many casualties because of that. So coming back out of the war, this soldier was crippled. He could never write his name. He could never use his index finger, ever. Well, he gets to see the psychologist. He referred to Dr. Watkins, and Dr. Watkins put him into a trance, and he brings him back to the scene. And through repetition of interpretation, he reinterprets the scene that the colonel really didn't tell you to throw that hand grenade. And does this often enough to where the subconscious and the unconscious, they come and fuse together in a force of mandate, and he's able to accept that he did not disavow, he did not disobey that order, and the paralysis was gone. So that's just an example of the power of hypnosis and what it can do for some of these cases of PTSD.
That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing that his hand began to work again. And then, you know what I thought you were going to say? I thought you were going to say that he was reprogrammed he threw the grenade. So it's interesting that he was reprogrammed he never got the order.
Actually, the reinterpretation.
Wow.
The constant reinterpretation over and over by the hypnotherapist, which was Dr. Watkins at that time.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, my first case that I got was as an intern at the University of Kansas Medical Center, and they thought this patient needed a CAT scan, had a tumor, brain tumor, had a horrible headache, and he showed up in Kansas City, had driven for 3 days from California and was in fugue. And it turns out he was a multiple personality. And I worked with him several hours, age regressing him back to different stages of his life. And what you find is that multiple personality, if they're really true, we call it now, the name is dissociative. But anyone that really has this syndrome has the most horrific trauma in their life, childhood trauma beyond anything that anyone could imagine. It truly is. Truly is. Yeah. So that case I took all the way to Vienna to the World Congress in 1984 and made my presentation at the World Congress.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And all of this before you went on active duty.
Yes. In fact, I was seeing veterans. I was working with active duty in field hospitals in foreign countries, listening to the woes and the torment and the tragic trauma which war had brought on, both invisible as well as visible scars. And having never joined that supreme fraternity called the Battle Buddies, bothered me. It really bothered me. And that discomfort chased me through most of my career until at age 63, I said, I'll join. Well, by the time the Pentagon got around to making a pass on my age, I developed a heart condition. And at that point, I needed a pacemaker. Right? I had a base rate of 43 beats a minute, and I skipping beats about 3.5 seconds between beats.
Oh my God!
I would lay in bed at night and couldn't hardly get to sleep because every beat, it felt like it was coming out of my chest to try and make up for the skip beats. So when I sent my documents in, they said, we want you to get down to Fort Sam. Well, the average lifespan without a pacemaker in that condition is only 5 years. I'll tell you what, I said, I'll do this or die. If I have to die trying. And that's how I went down to Fort Sam Houston.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, I want to back up a little bit. So what was the obstacle of like getting into the military at 63? Because that's way past the obstacle
age. I was paired with my grandkids. It was like grandchildren. I was on the platoon the first day I was there, and they divided everybody up. Everybody chose someone, and just by default, I didn't have anybody except another person, a female, that was there. She's half my age, and This is all in my book. In fact, she's on the front cover of my book.
I noticed there was
Yeah,
a female there,
my
and I was gonna
battle
ask
buddy.
about it. Is that
Yeah,
what your panel buddy? So you
that's
got
my battle
paired with
buddy.
a girl half your age
That's
when
right.
you get there, and I just because there's so much to that, like, first of all, there's the deciding to go in at that age, and then having to get special permission, like a waiver from the Pentagon, and then you have the heart issue, and then you get down there to do it, and then everyone's so much younger than
No,
you.
yeah, I was like I was on another planet. I mean, everybody being so young, and and many were experienced because they had gone in earlier in their life too, even though they were young. Let's say they went in at age 20 and they put in their 3 years, and then they're called back and activated. And for many of them, that was the case. But they just had so much more knowledge and understanding of military training, and I just felt like I was somebody struggling to just get some idea of what this military culture was like. But
Right.
it turned out to be a wonderful experience, even though I thought I was dying. They thought I was dying, carted me off to the emergency room twice from the desert.
Oh,
Um, but and then that kind of esprit de corps that comes from that experience is just, it's undeniable. It's something that civilian life never has a parallel. Never.
mhm. That's so true. I want to ask you, did you face any sort of ageism from the other soldiers?
Well, I think it was subtle. It was subtle. Um, I don't think my battle buddy was that happy to be by default paired with me, but we made it work. We realized that we needed each other. We're going to get through this. I mean, there were really good things that happened. The awareness that regardless of age, you may have some advantage to offer. You may have some resource to offer that this other person doesn't have. They have physical strength, they have physical stamina that's beyond you, but there are other attributes. And I think that I did serve as an example to that. I would like to see change occur in the military. I would like to see age limits really into a serious discussion or debate, which it has never been for over a century. I don't know if the book's going to make that much of an impression on the upper echelon, but if there's a groundswell that this book starts, I think the impetus may reach higher than what I expected.
I hope so, because I think it's really interesting what you just said, right? So you have people who are 18 years old that go, for example, when I went into the military, I knew in my sophomore year of high school, that's what my future plan was, right? I wasn't going to go to university right away. It was when they were doing the Montgomery GI Bill and they were saying, get your money for college, come to the military. And that was my way to go to college. So I knew that. And I took the ASVAB instead of the SAT. And I was on my way. Like, I was 17 when I signed up. Okay, I had to wait on a delayed enlistment until after I graduated high school. And then I gave myself 6 months to just chill until I was going to go into the military. And so there it was. I had actually just turned 19 when I went in, and when I actually went to boot camp. And you're so young, you don't know anything, right? But like you said, you have the physical stamina, you have agility and all of that. but you have also, and you have youthful ignorance, which is useful for the military, right? And for training and stuff like that. But if you have
Yeah,
someone who is older and you have life experience behind you, I think it's almost an ideal situation, you and your battle buddy, because you have life experience, you have knowledge, you have education, you have, world traveling experience, and, already a whole bunch of accolades behind you. And then you go in and you're paired with someone younger. I think it's kind of like you can play to each other's strengths, and you can actually be a much better benefit to the military and to the country that way.
yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. The military needs to think about the resource that the seniors can bring. With this arbitrary age thing of 43, if you're over 43 and you're an engineer, a lawyer, and medical specialist, a doctor, you can't serve. And you're at the top of your game in your 40s. You're at the top of your game. You're the best the military could ever hope for, but they don't want you. For the enlisted, it's 30, 39. They won't take you after 39. The Navy did finally make a change about a year ago. And so they will take someone it's either 40 or 41, that age.
Wow. But it just seems like you still have, because I am 49, right? And I feel like I have so much more to offer still. And, in fact, when that war broke out in Ukraine and everybody was in an uproar, I was also in an uproar. And I thought, oh, I have these skills that I could go and contribute to help their cause. Because I have small children, so it wasn't really an option. But I was thinking to myself, but I'm too old to serve in the military, so they probably wouldn't let me. But I do have skills that I could bring to the table. And I think that applies here, especially in the United States, where everyone knows we're living in sort of precarious times. And I think that if it was needed and they were needing to bring people into the military, it would be wise to lift that age limit and let more people come in with, who are further along in their skills and at the top of their game.
You just think of how the VA have benefited by bringing doctors who have retired. They're in their 60s, some of them in their 70s. And they have brought some of the greatest expertise and medical knowledge and skills that the VA has ever seen. We're now in an era where we live longer, and generally we're healthier. And I mean, you look at the admirals that served into their 80s. It was 4-star. There's 4 of them. 4-star admirals is the 5th star. He was the chief of the head of the Indian staff, of the naval staff of the Indian Navy. It was Kari, Gus Kari. But those are exceptions, of course. But nevertheless, they're examples to show us of that knowledge that we depend on and we need, and consultation. At the end of my training down at Fort Sam Houston, I had numerous individuals come to me for my counsel. I couldn't have ever expected that, but they did. And just think, what advantage an older person with expertise, experience, knowledge, and insights can add to the esprit de corps, can add to the confidence, the feeling of having somebody to access that may have something to say that can really make a change, an instant change in someone's thinking process for the better.
Amazing. I mean, I think even as a coach, and I've been coaching people and we do a lot of mindset work, but that's the goal, right? Like to create an instant change in someone for the better. And I just think that's such an incredible and a powerful thing, and so necessary for so many people. I mean, sometimes the change is gradual, but we're all looking for that instant change, that thing that can really bring something to life that makes a shift in our life. And that's an incredibly useful skill and very valuable. I could see why. I would imagine everyone would be coming to you, especially knowing your credentials. There must have been a line. I would have been in line to
Well,
get some.
I want to say more than knowledge is what you can do to connect people.
That's actually really beautiful. So tell me,
What can you do when somebody says they have nothing to live for? If you cannot crawl inside of them, if you cannot feel their pain, if you can't connect in when their confidence, you don't have a chance. You don't have a chance in hell of helping that person. And that's what I do.
that is incredible. Saving lives, absolutely changing lives. It's extraordinary work.
Very much so.
Tell me, what was active duty like for you once you
Well,
finished training?
let me just clarify. The active duty was really, it was something that was accelerated. It was accelerated uh, because this was officer's basic active duty. So it's different than somebody who goes in and has 6 weeks or more of active duty. But it was having carry a mannequin, 150-pound mannequin going over a 6-foot wall. Remember the sergeant, he had to come over there and push my butt over the wall, and he said, Snodgrass. He said, all I could think of was my dad. He said, it's awful. I thought, well, I'm sorry I made such a humiliation of myself, but appreciate the help getting me over the wall. Crawling under barbed wire with, carrying mannequins. The litter carry is challenging. It's an obstacle course, and but I the first day of the PT run, I'm out there, and the weather dropped down to 17. It wasn't like that when I arrived in Fort Seminole. And then they said, take off your take off your shirt, take off your sweater. You get down to shorts. Well, anyway, I developed some bronchitis. That didn't help my situation with my pacemaker in the least. But so I was winded, and I had a hypertensive crisis out in the desert, and they thought I was going to die, 208 or 110. And don't you die on me, Snodgrass. I remember this. He was looking at me in the face and had me on the gurney. Don't you die on me. Oh, I don't want to die.
Oh my God.
Well, I also need to clarify. So I was slotted to go to Iraq. When I got as far as launched through Germany, went through the medical screening, and they looked at my medical records, and they saw, oh, he's got sick-sinus syndrome, needs a pacemaker. Then they paused and said, we don't have a field hospital in Iraq. If you're in trouble, if we have an emergency, we really can't do anything for you. We're going to leave you here. So that's what they did. They left me there. And had some other assignments that I volunteered for. One was up at Mons, and the other one was down at Vicenza with the 173rd Battalion, the Airborne. So I performed quite well in spite of, the heart condition, whatever. I mean, if I could do it, with a broken heart, shall we say, right now, what other 60-year-olds can do it? At the end of my duty, my superior gave me an OER and said, promote Snodgrass, immediately to full colonel. Well, I'm 68. Guess what? 68 and out the gate. There were clinics in Germany that needed my specialty. And so I put in for an appeal to the Army headquarters. I want to extend 2 years. Well, they came back and said, you never did enter the military earlier in your life. We can't do that. Can't do that. Well, here I am, overseas. I perform well as a doctor. I have a lot to offer. And here's these two bases that they have these people that really need help. They need somebody to come there. They need a psychiatrist to provide services that they don't have. And I'm there. I'm ready. I'm credentialed. But no. I went to a 2-star general. I said, can you possibly get a waiver for me? She said it would take an act of Congress. So, it seemed like a no-brainer for me.
An act of Congress to extend you so that you can help and continue to serve. That makes me really sad.
Yeah.
So this ended your military career. What was your transition out like?
Yeah, no, it was definitely 68 and out the gate, and couldn't serve any longer. But, I certainly would have done it. Did everything I could to do it.
I can imagine how disappointing that must have felt. Did that impact your transition back to civilian life?
Well, not really, because so I went back to the States, but I was able to serve as a civilian in the Department of Defense for another 6 years. And I was happy about that.
That's beautiful. So at least you were still kind of in government and being able to help people in the traditional way that you've been used to.
Right. Yeah. No, I think the healing arts in psychiatry, it's a wonderful profession. And you have to have the passion. You have to have the passion and the inner, this inner commitment and conviction to care for others. And you have to have a whole lot of empathy. That's the way I see it. A whole lot of empathy.
Wow. It's extraordinary what you've been able to accomplish in your lifetime. So impressive. And I think that's why it's so special to have you here on Veterans Day on both the Female Veterans Podcast and on Hot Topics Live podcast. And I want to talk to you now about your book. Normally I would say what inspired your book, but clearly what inspired your book was your experience going into the military and its profound impact on you of why people who have, more expertise should be able to be allowed to serve.
It's a challenge of the status quo for recruitment in the military. It raises critical questions about age, relatedness, age, fixed age. What should we do about the limits? Can't we really think beyond that? Because if we can't, I just think that, look at where we are right now. We can't fill the quotas.
Mm-hmm.
The Pentagon came out with a study, 2022, saying that 77% of the youth of America would not qualify for the requirements for the military.
Wow.
And we're in a tough spot. We're in a different era. I think we've got to think big, and we've got to think outside the box.
That's staggering, really, those numbers.
It is. And then when you talk about, youth and PTSD, or sending young soldiers into a war zone, I mean, war can be inevitable. It usually is inevitable. Hopefully not. But who we send in to a war zone, I think, is a matter very much up for debate. We haven't had serious discussions about age limits in this country. If there were any, believe me, those debates were long gone, long time ago. And when you look at the neuroscience with regards to development and the prefrontal cortex of the brain, it's not mature until they're 25. You take those 18, 19-year-olds, like that was the average age of a trigger puller in Vietnam. And then 30% come back with PTSD. And even 20 years later, 15% still have this horrible thing.
Wait a minute.
So recent studies show that if you look at that age group and compare that with their cohorts of 25 or older, they have way more than twice the chance of developing PTSD as those cohorts 25 and older.
Wow.
To me, we got a moral issue here to think about.
Oh, okay. So that does make a lot of sense too. But I just have to ask a question because honestly, I really didn't know this. Can you cure PTSD? You don't have to live with that your whole life?
That's a very good question, because there's a third, I would say two-thirds of PTSD can be pretty much cured. There's 1/3 that are going to live with this the rest of their life. What we know about treatment is you've got to provide that treatment early. If you have a chance to save those that are going to be chronic and never be able to live a day in their life without it, you've got to attack this monster early. The demons won't let go of you. I mean, I was in Maine about 3 weeks ago. There was a book reading that they wanted me to be involved in with my book. I walked into a breakfast one morning, and there at the corner table was this elderly fella. He had a cap that said Marine Corps on it. And I greeted him, and he greeted me. He said, "Are you a veteran?" I said, "Yes, I am." We got together. We talked for an hour. It was unbelievable. Telling me about his experiences, telling me about the kinds of things that he has to carry inside of his soul forever. This is a 76-year-old veteran from Vietnam that sleeps 2 hours a night. 2 hours a night. When did that start? Oh, during his 9-month tour of duty, he had what they call 2-hour hole watch. What's a 2-hour hole watch? You dig a hole and you sit in it. You're locked and loaded with your weapon. You listen. You see things. You hear things. You're trying to protect your buddies. 2 hours on, 2 hours off. He never sleeps more than 2 hours a night. I said, "Well, have you been in treatment? VA, or PTSD?" "Oh, yeah. Did it help?" "No."
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think that people, unless you've been in the military, can really understand the the depth of that, like the gravity of that. I mean, it's emotional for me to even hear someone suffering that way from their service for so long, for their entire life, for their entire life.
And you've seen, read about these heroes, World War II heroes. Well, then you find out, what their life was like later on. Their life was hell. They're living in a basement. They can't go out and meet the public. They can't deal with life. They can't deal with, even hardly the everyday existence, except, to shield themselves off, to try to contain them, compartmentalize all of this furor, this hell inside of them. The demons won't let them go. And they're in a cerebral foxhole. That's what they are.
Wow. That actually makes a lot of sense.
So I think if we're really concerned about PTSD and our young people going in combat at such age, I think we need to raise the level of consciousness and concern and morality about what we're really dealing with.
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, when you say that, the making faculties are not fully developed until 25 and you're out in a field with a weapon, right? And you can serve and you can die for your country before you can even make good decisions.
I just ask any sergeant, ask any commander, recruiters. Why did recruiters go after 17, 18, 19, 8-year-olds? Why? What's so attractive? They got this tremendous vitality. They have some naivety too, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
What's the other thing they have that's so attractive? Fearlessness. They will go in and take orders, even though that they know that the end result of this battle will be annihilation. Their annihilation. They'll do it anyway.
Right.
I think those young men in Vietnam came back 18, 19 in combat. I don't think that they had the maturity to absorb the carnage, the actual carnage. They didn't have the sense of really a genuine appreciation for the reality of what life was. So later on, you have this thing called delayed PTSD. As you mature and get older, then you start, experiencing, oh, is that what I was doing? Oh, the consequences of this. Oh, I didn't realize, on and on and on.
Wow. So if you were older and you went into the military, say you were like 35, 40, 50, would it be less likely for you to get PTSD? Or would you still get it, but it may not be as bad?
Donovan and his colleagues that they have done in analyzing all these hundreds of cases, the 25 and older group would have less chance of developing PTSD. So we have research, that does point in that direction.
Wow. So if they raise the age of service to 25, a lot of these people who or a lot less people.
Well, let me just, if I could
yes.
If I could intervene in a statement about, I do not advocate that we should not allow teenagers, 18, 19 years old, to join the military. It's just, I think it's a flawed concept to send those people into a war zone, into combat.
I see.
So there's many other functions that they can provide in the military. other than just going out and shooting people. There's many
Right.
things.
I mean,
So
of course,
I
there's
think we really need to really think clearly and about what we need to revamp and restructure, reform, a reformation of the system.
well, it makes sense to me. What would you like to see happen? Would you like to see the age limit for just for combat be raised? Would
I
you?
would like for them to raise the age limits for combat. Yes, I certainly would, but I really want to see them look at the value of seniors that have much to offer. I mean, look what we have now. Look how telemedicine has taken over during this pandemic. Well,
Mhm.
you've got radiologists could live across the globe in another part of the world and still function perfectly as a radiologist. You have doctors that do telemedicine all the time, and so it's not that the 60 or 70-year-olds have to do 20 push-ups. They have to run like a deer in a 2-mile run. No, we don't. You know, really, I think we're seeing that we need to realign with a much more insightful and flexible concept of age and its value to the military in different ramifications.
Do you think that it would ever change?
May not change in my lifetime. I know that the upper echelon officials in high places that could make changes have no intentions of having a mandate to form a serious discussion about this. So the culture has to change, doesn't it?
I think so. Or the demand, the need for it has to be so pressing that it
Yeah,
makes it feasible.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing that you took the time to write this book and put it out there and put your perspective out there for more people to become aware of it and to tell your story because it's incredible. I said it a million times today, but
I
it
might
really
add
is.
something, if I might,
Of
kind
course.
of interesting in terms of managing stress as a psychiatrist in the military. I could come home from a very stressful day, and I have something that has been marvelous throughout my life. I can play the piano. I can sit down at the piano and pause and let my emotions tell me what to play. I don't need I don't need to know any notes. So tell me what to play, and I could play for 45 minutes, and it's like completely disengaging from all of that stress up here in my brain and displacing it. I don't know, displacing it through the music, through the notes.
Wow.
Uh, After that 45 minutes, my brain has been in a sauna, and I'm in a reset. In a reset.
That's wonderful.
So that's been a wonderful adjunct, a therapeutic adjunct for me. And there are other things that people can do, to discharge tension and to relax.
So we just have to find what works for us. For me, it's painting, by the way. I like Jackson Pollock, the way he would do action painting and just kind of throwing the paint at the
Oh yes,
canvas.
oh
For
yes,
me,
yeah,
that's
Pollock, yeah,
therapy.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
exactly,
Hmm.
absolutely, yeah. Arts, music, that's wonderful stuff. Um, yeah, Arthur Rubinstein, I think he was the greatest classical pianist of all times, and he used to say, if you can't put emotion, into your music, it's really not music. You're a technician.
That is really powerful.
Uh,
My goodness.
we
I
have
hope
we have to keep our minds active, though. We really do. I say, hey, you can't be a couch potato. You got to keep the ear. You got to keep the gears between the ears. You got to keep the neurons fired. You have to.
you
You
actually
might be
just
the AV4, but I'm an expert witness in the state of Washington for personal injury cases right now.
right. Well, you know what? You actually inspired me to have another question for you. Before I think I've one, two more questions before we wrap it up. Because can you believe it? It's almost been an hour. I can't even believe it went by so quickly.
Seems like 5 minutes for me.
Right? So I guess so if people need to like relieve stress and kind of sort of discharge their day, your way was piano, mine is painting. What suggestions would you have for people to find their thing?
Well, don't watch TV. And if you have to, even mind games, is better than that. The TV is the most non-thinking thing you could possibly do. It's just awful. Um, it could be gardening. I mean, there's a host of things you can do. Absolutely a host of things. Maybe all these people, should go and take the strong vocational interest test if they just really don't have any ideas. That test
Hmm.
measures your interest and things likes and dislikes. It's been around for years and years. I've used it. It's wonderful. It's an old test, but it has a lot of research behind it. But
How would you do that? How would you go take that test?
oh, you could go to any psychologist and ask to take that exam. You know that when they were establishing norms for this examination and the studies that they did, like they took a group of women, gave them this test of likes and dislikes at age 18, and then that same group at 25, guess what? At 25, their likes and dislikes changed 50%. 50%. Of course, by 25, their prefrontal cortex is probably immature too.
Wow. It's so incredibly interesting. You know what? I think I just thought of another question, if you don't mind, before the last question.
All right.
I think since I have you here, I should just pick your brain a little bit. So you said don't watch TV, exercise your mind and, don't be a couch potato, right? What other ways as we're getting older can we stay sort of
Try some, try something new. Try something new. You know, maybe it's drawing, maybe it's painting. Just be a little bold. Take a risk. Some skill, because by doing so, it's amazing. New challenges bring on tremendous payoff, tremendous rewards, because you grow as a person, not only as what the person that you feel you're becoming, your mind. You develop a lot of activity, a lot of neurocellular activity that's going on when you do that as well. So I mean, photography. There's so many things out there. I wish I could put my finger on some kind of a workshop and say, hey, this is what that workshop offers. But I can't right now. But there needs to be that kind of experience for older people or retired. They may not be that old, but once you retire, many people are waiting, just, oh, if I could, yeah, when I get my 20th year, oh, my 25th year. Guess what? If you don't have plan B, whatever it is, you've got to have purpose, the big P. If you don't have purpose, look what you're doing with your life. You're wasting it. You are wasting it if you don't have purpose. You've got to have purpose. Productivity
amazing.
helps. All that job they had for 25, 30 years, productivity. Something's got to replace that. Plan B.
I mean, you often hear of people retiring, and then they just kind of waste away. And I think you're right. I mean, obviously, that productivity is so
Absolutely.
necessary.
I mean, that is such a perfect, clear example of the mind and body that are inseparable, absolutely inseparable. If you don't have the zest to feel that you are making a difference or you are doing something positive and purposeful, this is going to affect your physical health. It will affect your physical health. I guarantee you. It's all integrated.
Thank you for that. And my last question for you is, what advice would you have for people who are thinking about going into the military, coming up behind you?
Well, I think in this generation that we have now, I think they should look at the military as a way in which to formulate character, growth, discipline. You got to learn to love discipline. You got to have that, in your mind, your preface. You have to think, okay, what am I going to really need to make this successful? To make this successful, you have to love work, hard work. You have to have discipline, accountability. These are good virtues. These are good things that are going to stand the test of time the rest of your life. I think we've somehow lost that wonderful mantra of General MacArthur: duty, honor, country. Remember those three words: duty, honor, country. Loving your country, patriotic.
Yeah. Patriotic. I agree.
Yeah, the greatest generation. It's just about gone, isn't it? I think people who are octogenarians, they're the last ones to carry it forward, aren't they?
Yeah, it's different now.
Yeah, it is. It is different.
Does it make you sad?
Somewhat. Somewhat.
I mean, I feel sad because it's different for my generation from when I was young growing up. I sometimes feel sad too.
Yeah, I have concerns about where we are moving forward. Do we teach? Do we have any value for the word grit? Grit. That one word to me says a lot. We are a nation and a culture that's going to mature and going to be successful and going to be leaders in the world and shed a light. You better have GRIT, grit. I guess
Wow.
it's one T, isn't it? Not two T's.
Well, you still need it. So,
Yeah,
um,
we do, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, we have. That's part of this thing, resilience.
Mhm.
You know, resilience actually loves hard work, and that's how it twicks. It ticks. It tickles or it brings happiness. Hard work, hard work. Yeah, I love hard work.
So I think if you just find something you're interested in and work hard at it, then you'll feel fulfilled in life.
If you have passion, you don't waste your chronological and emotional coupons on all of this wonderful life that you have to give. If you don't have passion in that, choose something else. Choose something, whatever it is. You've got to have passion. Life's too precious to waste, right?
Mhm.
I think so.
I think so too. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being a guest on both Hot Topics Live podcast and the Female Veterans podcast.
Thank you, Kia.
Um,
I'm very appreciative of you. Thank you so much for valuing this time with me, the veteran, and this day.
It's just my favorite day, to be honest with you. I earned it. You earned it. We all earned it. And in fact, I'm going to stand on my soapbox and say that this government and the businesses in this country do not value their veterans enough. Every day should be something special for a veteran, whether it's a discount or a free meal or even a place to live. So I will always be on that soapbox that no veteran should be without a home, without their basic needs met. And I think that this country is doing a very big disservice to its veterans as we speak. So that's my soapbox. I'll get off. But
I was happy. I walked through the cashier over at Student Union at University of Kansas today with my lunch, and they said, "Oh, you don't pay anything."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was nice.
I agree. That's beautiful. It should be more than one day.
There needs to be more attention, and there needs more accolades given to the veterans. That is true. I totally agree. I think that we were remiss.
I do. I mean, so what happened to me that was awesome, it was actually a couple of years ago. I was in St. Louis and I was flying on Alaska Airlines. So shout out to Alaska in St. Louis because it doesn't happen on every location. But in that airport in St. Louis, Missouri, when they were boarding, it's just such a little thing too. They were boarding the planes. And when they say, you know, families with children, active duty, and then I heard them say, and veterans can board the plane first. And I thought,
I have never.
Right? It's such a simple thing. Why don't all airlines do that?
Rare. So utterly rare, but it's wonderful to hear.
Right? Yes. So amazing. We deserve
less than
more.
1% of the country, less than 1% are going to join the military.
Mm-hmm. So give us a free meal, a discount, and let us board the plane early. It's not that much to ask.
God bless those veterans that don't have a place to live at their home.
For sure. So, or food. Like there needs to be something more.
Heart goes out. Yeah.
And you know, a lot of them are suffering from PTSD and mental health issues.
That's right. That's right. 50% of them are really suffering from serious mental health problems. But they need more than money thrown at them.
Mm-hmm. They need help. They need real help. They need real help. Well, with that said, I could talk about that all day, but I won't because I want to be respectful of your time.
Kia. Yes, Kia.
Thank you so much for being a guest. I really have valued this time more than you could possibly imagine. It has been such a pleasure to connect with you. Thank you so much and happy Veterans Day. I'm going to put you in the green room. Now you have time to meet me and say a proper goodbye. I'll see you in a few minutes. And if not, I totally understand and enjoy your Veterans Day.
Sure.
Thank you. Oh, was that not such a superb experience? I loved every minute of it. And I'm so grateful to have gotten to share my Veterans Day with such an amazing and accomplished veteran and bring all of his knowledge to you. So I hope you enjoyed that. I know for my female veterans, you prefer when it's women. I know. But listen, he's extraordinary with an extraordinary message. And did you not catch the whole thing about hypnotherapy and PTSD and the fact that maybe you could be one of those people who could cure their PTSD? That was like mind-blowing for me. So anyway, before I wrap it up, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor at Ageless Call. Speaking of mental health, right? So my friend Kelly, if you've been watching this podcast, you know she's been sponsoring these episodes. And it's because she's creating a revolutionary mental health app. It is in the works right now. It's being built. It's going to be a member site. You're going to be able to go there. It's going to use AI. You're going to get so much help and support and content that can help you in your mental health journey. You can support Eris Health very simply right now by just going to @ErisHealth on Instagram and following that page. And if you want, drop Kelly a DM and tell her Kia sent you from Hot Topics Live podcast or the Female Veterans podcast, and support that, because so many people are suffering with their mental health right now, especially since the pandemic. So we need every bit of help that we can get. Okay. So thank you to Kelly for sponsoring this episode. And well, I want to thank you guys for sticking with me and watching this episode. Normally, I do something really special at the end of the show. I'm not going to do it today, so you'll have to catch it on the next one. If you want to follow me on more places and support what I'm doing, then you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. You can also follow my pinup journey there, where I fight age limitations by modeling, and having a body positive platform, as well as you can do anything you want at any age you want to do it. Do not let society put limits on you. Okay, I'm not. You shouldn't either, and neither did Lanny. Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Lanny Snodgrass is such an amazing person to share his time with us today. And I hope you really, really enjoyed that. So I will be back this week with another Dating After Divorce episode. I know I was going to come back last week and I didn't get a chance to, because I have a life other than podcasting. But I will be back because I have got a really good one for you. We're going to talk about friends with benefits and what that means. And different situations. And I'm going to give you some tea on some stuff that happened to me recently. And then I have another episode at the end of the week with a male coach. So that's going to be incredible. And I know you're going to love it. And well, with that, we're going to wrap it up. So stay tuned. Remember to set your notifications so you know when I come live. You're watching the shorts, you're watching the short videos I'm doing on the channel, but you're not subscribing. Subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, share, help spread the word. You know how hard it is to get through on this algorithm these days? Help me out, okay? And I'll see you next time. I love you guys, I really do. And I appreciate you so much for coming on this journey with me. I'll talk to you next time.